As the Russia-Ukraine war rages on, two incidents involving the hostile use of drones took place on Monday. Russia claims it shot down a Ukrainian drone near one of its air bases. Meanwhile, 5 North Korean drones were seen flying above several South Korean cities. The drones flew above South Korea for about 5 hours. South Korea's military failed to shoot them down. The incidents raised the question once more: are drones the future of warfare? Let's look at the incident separately. Russia blames Ukraine for the drone attack on its airbase, an airbase located deep within Russian territory. This is where some of Russia's long-range strategic bombers are based. The Defense Ministry says it shot down the drone and no planes were damaged. But 3 Russian Air Force personnel were killed because of falling drone wreckage. The South Korean military scrambled jets and helicopters to deal with the 5 drones in its airspace. A helicopter equipped with a machine gun fired around 100 rounds to bring the drones down, but it failed. The military said the drones were too small to intercept. They measured only about 3 meters in size. On Tuesday, South Korea's military came out with a public apology for their failure.
Our military's lack of preparedness has caused a lot of concern to the people, so our military will thoroughly check each troop's detection and strike assets against the enemy's drone provocation and actively employ detection services to spot the enemy's drone from an early stage and aggressively deploy strike assets.
So in both cases, the drones were deep in another nation's territory. They managed to either avoid detection or evade defenses to make it that far. In Russia's case, the drone was shot down. But even when it crashed, it killed 3 people. Russia, of course, knows all about the advantages of drone warfare. Its use of Iranian drones in Ukraine has caused massive damage to Ukrainian infrastructure. Ukraine has found it difficult to deal with the kamikaze drones that Russia deploys, and the weapons that Ukraine uses to take down the drones are usually more expensive than the drones themselves. From a cost perspective, drones are cheap, one-time weapons that can be used to devastating effect. So what is the way to counter them? Multi-million-dollar aircraft and missiles won't be cost-effective. The anti-drone bazookas available at present are expensive, and drones are hard to shoot down with conventional guns. South Korea may have a solution. President Yoon Suk-Yeol has announced a new military unit.
Using yesterday's incident as momentum, we will expedite the plan to create a drone unit as soon as possible. Then we will boost its surveillance capability with cutting-edge stealthy drones.
Surveillance drones may be able to detect enemy UAVs early, but shooting them down will still be a challenge. This is an issue that has been flagged off even in the past. How do you deal with one-time use drones whose wreckage may still take lives and destroy infrastructure? And what happens when an enemy state does not care about civilian casualties and they launch these death parcels above populated areas? The Russian invasion of Ukraine has showcased the effectiveness of kamikaze drones during a war. More investments will be made in the development of these weapons. But the war has exposed holes in drone defense strategies as well, and perhaps given a long-needed boost to anti-drone research. For more on this story, we have with us Peter Kuznick from Washington, D.C. He is a professor of history and director of the Nuclear Studies Institute at the American University. He is also an author. Peter Kuznick, pleasure to have you back on WION. Now, we have cited 2 examples where drones have been used in the past 48 hours. In both these cases, the drones were deep inside another country's territory. They managed to avoid detection or evade defenses. And given what's happened in the Russia-Ukraine war, we now know that drones are cheap, one-time weapons that can be used to devastating effect. How do you deal with drones? Are they changing the face of modern warfare, in your view?
They do seem to be changing the face of warfare. They're, as you say, they're inexpensive. They are not deadly in the same sense that nuclear weapons are deadly, but they certainly can achieve You see what's happening inside Ukraine. The Russians have effectively knocked out much of Ukrainian infrastructure. Some of that is with missiles, but a lot of that is with the drones. They've been able to actually shoot down a lot of the missiles. They've been able to shoot down, they claimed, more than 70% of the Russian drones. But if they shoot down 70%, 30% are still getting through. The drones are less expensive than the defense systems that are being used to shoot them down. And they are destroying the electricity grid and the water supplies and other aspects of the infrastructure in Ukraine. So it's a very effective weapon. And what we see now coming down the pike is new kinds of drone technologies. Countries are working on swarming technologies that are being controlled through artificial intelligence. So maybe you'll have 50 or 100 of these drones starting off in different places, but at the last minute, they all come together to swarm together to hit the target. And this is done with artificial intelligence. So they're able to even more effectively evade the efforts to shoot them down. So the defense now has not yet caught up with the offense. There is a lot of research going on defense also to try to knock out those capabilities, or at least to prevent them from communicating with each other the way they are and the way they've been able to. And we see, for example, China has now experimented with some catamarans that are going to be able to launch multiple drones that could be very effective if war breaks out between China and Taiwan. So this really does look like at least one important part of the face of future warfare.
It does look like the face of future warfare. Now, in Russia's case, they claim it's the wreckage of the drones that killed 3 people on the ground. Drones we've already seen can wipe out infrastructure. What happens when an enemy state, for example, launches drones over populated areas? We have seen how the Russia-Ukraine war has exposed holes, as you pointed out, in drone defense strategies. Also, given how they're being used now, do you believe that armed drones have become a must-have in the arsenal of any modern military?
Yes, absolutely. And many, many countries have them now. They're not that expensive. They're not even that difficult to actually manipulate and to use. So countries can learn quickly and easily how to do that. We know that it has some psychological impact, a kind of PTSD on the drone operators, and they've got to be circled in and out fairly regularly because of the psychology, the effect that it has, seeing these targets and following them and then killing people at the other end. But if you're taking out infrastructure, maybe that's not quite as psychologically debilitating. But we see Russia, China, Iran, the United States, India, South Korea. You go down the list, most countries are doing this. Many of the drones that are being used by the Ukrainians are coming from Turkey now. The Bayraktar drones are very effective. Many of the drones being used by the Russians are coming from Iran. So many countries can develop this technology and supply them to the countries that are at war. So it's not only an important part of future warfare, it's an important part of current warfare.
All right. Clearly, a lot is changing as we are finding out, particularly from the Russia-Ukraine war. On that note, Peter Kuznick, thanks so much for speaking to WION.
Thank you.